Hey everybody, this is Nintokis. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today. I've been wanting to do this for a very long time. I just haven't had the opportunity to actually jump in and get started on it. But this is going to be a time lapse. I'm hoping to do more of these. What I've been doing lately is those who support my Twitch channel through follows and subscriptions will be getting a drawing based on a video game character that they choose. So I'm just going to go over a quick time lapse of this, explain a little bit of my process, and maybe talk a little bit about Pokemon as we go through. As you're gonna see through this, there's gonna be a lot of little like red lining where I'll draw in red and try to point some things out. I didn't realize during the recording process how fast I would have to make the footage in order to make it, not such a chore to sit through. It's I had to shorten it down to about 6 minutes. It took me about 30 minutes to do this, so they might be going by a little bit faster than I could keep up with. This is my first time doing a time lapse art thing, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna just jump right into it. Just gonna speak off the cuff, and we'll get started. Starting off, there's a couple of different drawings of Pichu. Usually, when people give me a character, regardless of whether or not I've drawn them before, I like to just revisit the idea. Like, it's so easy as an artist to see something and have drawn it so many times if you like a character or even created a character and think, all right, I've got this. I know how to draw this from memory and it's fine. And you might overlook a couple details, forget a couple small things that really go into that character's design that some people might find essential to the way it looks. Like in some of those doodles, I believe at first, I may have updated them before I started recording the time lapse, but the little like black cuff around like the collar almost around Pichu's neck, like just to kind of give him that little collar, I completely forgot all about that. And that would have been a travesty if I were to just like post that on Twitter and be like, hey, this is Pichu, the same guy you know and love, right? But yeah, no, at this point in the process, I had a couple of the doodles down and I knew I wanted to work off one of his taunts. At first, I kind of wanted him laying on the ground, rolling around, but I realized that wasn't going to work, so I settled with his jumping taunt. It's a little bit different from the photo that I had picked up off of recording of Pichu doing the taunt from Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, where he's just kind of waving his arms. I couldn't freeze frame at the right moment where his arms were up, so I just kind of placed them up there myself. I do believe they're a little bit long, but I think it lends a little bit better to the silhouette. But, we'll see. And usually when I do these drawings, if any of you guys are my patrons, you've read my Patreon post about thumbnailing and how important that is to get the type of pose and composition, that you want. And basically, while I'm learning how to draw these characters again from scratch, as I mentioned, I'm also thinking about composition, what I want to do. And once I settle with like a version of that character I like, a pose that I like, an idea, then I upscale that and then I begin to work, which is what I'm doing here. This is just a rough sketch that I'm making bigger. Here I am pointing out layers and visibility where I start to get rid of the reference imagery and just go over the lines that I already have down. And it's at that point where I accidentally drew on the sketch layer, so I was trying to get rid of the eye. But here I go for like a very brief visual demonstration of how layers work. For those of you not well versed in the digital space, it makes it so much more convenient to iterate on your works as opposed to traditionally where you would have to draw something repeatedly. Digitally, you can kind of draw something and then work over it, almost like you're looking down at several sheets of paper without affecting what is under it. Almost like a light box. That's probably the best example. I know a lot of animators use that, or used to use that. I don't know how the process is now. I'm not much of an animator myself. But when I got to this stage, the line work under that, obviously, it's going to be blurry because I made it bigger. Sketchbook Pro, not the best at maintaining the clarity of the line art as something like Photoshop or Illustrator. But pretty much what I do is I take my ink pen again and I go over it. And I'm a lot more careful when I'm drawing the lines. I'm no longer trying to feel stuff out. I know the shape I'm going for, and I take a lot more time to kind of get those details in. And on top of that, I'm trying to really control my arm movements while I'm doing this. And one thing a lot of artists like to use that I'm personally against is a line smoother. There was an old arts teacher that I had who taught me the process of quote unquote truing up. This is the line smoother demonstration. But you could see a lot of the times before I put down that circle, I'm waving this stylus around, and you could see there's just a little bit of a dot there, but you could see I kind of rotated around in a circle before putting it down and getting one of those circles in between. And you could see for the outer end of the eye just before there, I kind of gave up and like I didn't close the circle perfectly. There was like a little bit of frayed ends on there. I just erased those. Sometimes you just got to take what you get. And that's one thing I like about art is there's no definite way to get to an end product. There's always multiple ways to get there and make it look clean. And granted, my line work, for this drawing especially, isn't the best you'll ever see, and some would argue that I should be using that line smoother for certain projects, and I'm not knocking anybody who does. It's just for me, I feel like I'm robbing myself, but maybe I'll grow out of that mindset. I mean, I used to think when I was younger that using reference pictures was cheating, and that's absurd. Like, you will never draw something as effectively and make it look as convincing without some sort of frame of reference. But I'm getting a little bit off topic here. We're getting into the eyes. What I like to do for these bigger spots of black to give a little bit more contrast to the image, I actually like to swap over to the paintbrush and just fill it in like that. Though something with Sketchbook Pro's paintbrush is the ends of it aren't quite hard, so I like to almost trace with a thicker like pressure, like I push down a little bit more on the stylus to get a bigger line with the ink pen, and then I use the paintbrush to fill out the middle. So I'm still getting those crisp edges that the ink brush gives me, or the ink pen, excuse me, but still getting the flat blacks of the paintbrush without, any of the weird blurry edges. And it's just a lot easier than constantly pushing down on my tablet to get the thickest line. Paintbrush lets me just make it a lot bigger, just go in there with it. And you can even see I'm still using the eraser to like make those edges come out just a little bit sharper at like the points of that little collar area. And generally, at this point, most of the outer line work is done. I'm just kind of like refining a few things, make sure that the line weights are looking okay. Line weight is how thick something is. A lot of artists fall into the trap of making everything on their drawing the same line weight, and I try my best to vary it, where like if something is going to be in like the quote-unquote shade, I'll make it a little bit thicker, or if it's just like bearing more weight, it'll be thicker. And like if the curve is coming up top and like the sun's beating down on their head, I'd make it a little bit thinner to give that illusion of light and shadow and weight. And I'm not the best at it, and this drawing particularly not the best demonstration of it, but just that variance, regardless of where it is or what it represents, does help your art pop just a little bit more. Especially, and now looking back at it, I should have darkened his Pichu's left foot that's coming up because it's in front of everything. And, it's just, that's how it is. I mean, you can see it a little bit. I actually have his right arm a little bit darker than his left because his left is going behind his head. That's a decent enough demonstration of what it is. But at this point, now Pichu is mostly done, and I'm just kind of adding some fun little electricity to it. I don't always do that with the Twitch drawings, but I figured for the time-lapse it could be fun, and honestly, I just like Pichu. But at this point, it's done, and I go ahead and write down the name and the thanks for who supported me. Mad God 4, I love Realm of the Mad God. I saw him repping the game in his banner, but yeah, that's been Pichu. Feel free to follow me, and I hope this YouTube thing takes off. Yeah, take care, guys, and until next time. And before this video ends, I just want to take a moment to thank my patrons, Deanna, Eddie, Tiana, and Elena. Thank you so much for getting in on the ground floor. And if you're watching this and you feel like you want to support me as well, the Patreon and all the details that you're going to need for it are going to be in the description below. You can see all the different tiers that I have, and there's going to be a lot of fun goodies coming out for those who back me. This is all just getting started, so no pressure, no worries, but that's all there if you need it. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, and I hope you guys look forward to more content.